Okay, this is video 4 for chapter 1, and we're going to combine multiplying and dividing integers. So we're putting them together in one section because they have the same rules. So in this section, I can multiply and divide integers. So remember, we're talking about positive and negative numbers with integers. So what are the rules? What kind of answer are we going to get if we multiply and divide when we have some negatives? Okay, so we understand that when the signs are the same, the product will be positive. Okay, and this says product for multiplication. We're also talking about quotient when we divide. So the product and the quotient will be positive if the signs are the same. And when we multiply or divide, so again, product or quotient will be negative if the signs are different. So we're going to look at a story to help us remember that, and then do some practice. And then target 2, I can write and evaluate. So just like we did with addition and subtraction, we can write and evaluate expressions. So set them up and get an answer if it's a story problem involving multiplication or division. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit in this video about how to tell which operation it should be. So I'm going to tell a quick story to help us remember the rules for multiplication and division. Okay, so this story is about people at a party. So imagine everyone's at the party and everyone's happy, having a good time, everyone's positive. Okay, then suddenly who should show up but a grouch, a negative person. So this guy over on the right's not very happy. What do you think is going to happen to the party? Well, the grouch goes around complaining to everyone about the food, the music, the room temperature, the other people, just full of complaints. Very negative person. And what happens to the party? Well, pretty soon, that one negative grouch going around complaining makes everyone else become negative too. Nobody else has any fun anymore once he kind of ruins the party. So, but wait, another guest comes. And look, over to the right, we have another grouch. Another grumpy negative person shows up at the party. What do you think's going to happen? Well, the two negative people can be grumpy together. And they start complaining to each other about how miserable they are, both those two negative people. And what happens to the rest of the party? Well, look, the negative people, now that they had a friend to hang out with, they start to smile and have a good time too. And so the pair of negative people become positive, and the party is saved. The whole party can go back to being positive and happy again, right? So now that the two grouches are together, the rest of the people who were really positive all along can be happy again, okay? So the moral of the story, when we multiply and divide integers, so think about all the integers mingling together at the party, one negative in the whole party will make your party negative. Okay, one negative will make the answer negative. But if you have two negatives, they can hang out together and your party will go back to being positive and happy again. Okay, so here's our rules. And we're going to talk about this more in examples, so I'm going to switch back out. So this is what you need to have written down. Fill this in on your paper. The moral of the story, right? Think of all those integers at the party. For multiplication or division, if the signs are all the same, right? So if you have all bunch of positive people at the party, you're going to have a positive answer. Or if you have all negative people and they can kind of group together and have other friends that are negative, then the party is going to stay positive and your answer will be positive. Okay? But for multiplication and division, if the signs are different, if you have some positive people and you put a negative one in there, it's going to make your whole party be negative. Okay? So if you have positive and negative mixed together, so really we only worry about two at a time. So if I'm multiplying a positive and a negative together, either order, right? Positive and a negative multiplied together, your answer here for both of these is going to be negative because that negative ruins the party. All right, so there's our rules. Let's look at some examples. So here's just examples of multiplying. All you need to know for multiplication is think of that party. If one of the people at the party is negative, your answer is going to be negative. If one of the people at your party is negative, your answer is going to be negative. If two negatives can hook up together and pair up, then they become happy. Okay, two positives are just going to stay positive. I'm going to keep going through. 0 times anything is just 0, so we'll leave that 0. Two negatives can hook up together, they'll hang out together, they'll be happy. Positive answer. Two positives are just going to stay positive at the party. And one of each, you put one negative in there, your answer is negative. So when you see a multiplication problem, your first thing is to just look at the signs of the numbers and say, hey, is this final answer going to be positive or negative? And then it's just your multiplication facts, right? So 4 times 3 is 12, and I know it's going to be a negative 12. 6 times 5 is 30. We already said it was going to be negative. 8 times 2 is 16. It's going to be positive. 9 times 6 is 54. So there's nothing new here. It's just your multiplication facts and then deciding if the final answer should be positive or negative. Let's keep going with number 6. 12 times 3 is 36, and I already decided it was positive. 11 times 7 is 77. We already decided it was positive. And 5 times 5 is 25. Okay, how about division? Same rules. Let's go through and just look at the signs first and decide if our answer is going to be positive or negative. So, same thing. If one of them is negative, my answer is negative. Go across this top row. Both of them are negative at the party. They can hang out together. I get a positive answer. Number 3, one of each. One positive, one negative. It's going to be negative at the party. Number 4, 0 divided by anything. Positive or negative, doesn't matter. Just 0. Number 5, one of each. My answer is negative. Number 6, one positive, one negative. My answer is negative. Number 7, one of each. One positive, one negative. I get a negative answer. And number 8, one of each. I get a negative answer. So that's what we should always go through first. Just look at the signs and say, okay, looking at the signs of my numbers, I'm going to get a positive answer or a negative answer. Then you can go through, and again, it's just your multiplication facts to get the answer. Well, 8 divided by 4 is 2. Oops. 2. 15 divided by 3 is 5. And now I don't have to worry too much or think too hard about what the sign of the answer is. I already have that figured out. Okay, number 3, 10 divided by 5 is 2. And I'm not even concerned about really thinking about the signs anymore. I know I've done that part already. I'm just doing the math. We did 0 divided by 7. 35 divided by 7. 18 divided by 6. 72 divided by 9. And 5 divided by 5. Well, a number divided by itself is always 1. If you look at the signs first and decide whether your final answer is positive or negative, then you can kind of not worry about those anymore and just do the math in your head. Okay. So let's look at these examples. So we've talked about this a little bit, how this bar is telling us to divide. Okay? So these look like fractions, big fractions, or you can also think of this as a division problem. So I can look at this first one and I could say that's -2 divided by 3. Okay? I could look at this one and I could say that's 2 divided by -3. And I could look at this last one and say that's -2/3. Well, are those all the same? Are they equal? Let's see. If I look at this first one, I'm doing division. I know that I have one negative and one positive, so it's going to be a negative answer, and 2 divided by 3 is 2/3. Look at the second one. One positive, one negative, I'm dividing them. It's going to be a negative answer, 2/3. And this last one is 2/3. So the key here is that it doesn't matter whether your negative's on top, on the bottom, or out front in the middle. All of these have a value of negative 2/3. Okay, so they're equivalent, they're equal, right? You could write it this way, I could write it this way. We've both given the same answer. Okay, so let's look at the next one. Again, a negative out front, one negative on top, or one negative written on the bottom. These are all going to give me negative 1/6. I know it's a negative because I see the negative here, or one negative, whether it's on top, or one negative, whether it's on the bottom, still is just a negative answer. I do want you to write something in though. If you see something like this, now I have a division problem, right? This bar still tells me to divide, but I see that I have a negative divided by a negative. Well, when the signs match, that gives you a positive answer. So really, this is equal to positive 1/6. So if that was one of your choices and you were trying to pick the one that does not belong, writing it this way is not the same as those three up there. Okay? Okay. So I want you to just listen and follow along, and we're going to look at just some examples of how you can tell if a story problem, when you should be dividing or when you should be multiplying. Okay? How do we tell which operation it is, multiplication or division? Is it multiplying? Is it dividing? Okay? Well, let's look at 4 examples of when we should multiply. Anytime you have repeated addition, right? Either you keep adding a positive number, positive, 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 positive. You keep adding on, adding on, adding on. Or even if it's a negative number. So if you are like adding -3, -3, -3 each time. Anytime you see that repeated addition or repeated kind of subtraction when it's a negative, it's going to be multiplication. Multiply. Okay? So, you have space for A, B, C, D. I want you to write down kind of for these examples what the multiplication problem would be. All right? You spend $7 each day on vacation for 6 days. So, $7, $7, $7, $7. You spend that much each day. Repeated. Okay? So, you are spending $7 times 6 days. This is what I want you to write on your paper. There's your repeated multiplication. Or sorry, it's repeated addition, so we show it with multiplication. The next one, the temperature goes down 3 hours every hour. Goes down 3 degrees every hour for 5 hours. So -3, -3, -3, repeated, right? Down 3 degrees times 5 hours. That would be your expression for showing that multiplication. You burn 10 calories each minute when you jog for 20 minutes. Okay? Burn 10, burn 10, burn 10, burn 10. So we're losing 10 calories times 20 minutes. You can show it with parentheses, you can show it with a dot, you can show it with an X. 250 acres are burned each day in the forest fire that lasted for a week. Well, okay, I'm losing the 250 acres, and I could just multiply that by 7 days. Okay, so in each of these examples for multiplication, you're either going up, 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 or down, 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 and that's going to be multiplication. So this work here is what you should have written down for each one on your paper, okay? All right, let's look at, very quickly, a couple examples for division. All right, you start with the total and you split it up into smaller parts or into smaller groups. This is going to be division. If I can get a color that works. Division. Okay, you're going to divide here. So, a bear loses 200 pounds when she hibernates for 4 months. You're going to take whatever the total is and split it up into how many pieces or how many groups. So, 200 pounds over 4 months. And make sure you label those. The temperature dropped 16 degrees over 4 hours. So, it went down 16 degrees. Remember, we're paying attention to the sign over 4 hours. Okay? You try the last two, and then we'll check. Okay, just check those two here.